Serbian side. However, Kosovo continues to implement unilaterally disagreements, showing goodwill, showing that it is quite constructive and cooperative in the process. Although, from a legal point of view, and from an international law point of view, once one of the parties is not going to implement the agreement, and that's clear, as it is in the case of Serbia because of the Constitutional Court decisions, the other party is allowed not to implement them as well because of changing circumstances, but Kosovo's government did not do that. Going back to the issue of implementation, especially point 14 of the Brussels Agreement, which initially had read that neither party would block the membership into international organizations of the other party, and then at least what the media said was that by Serbia's insistence it was changed into saying that neither party will block the EU integration of the other party. Still, it took Serbia a couple of years to understand that Kosovo's participation and membership in some of the regional initiatives actually falls within the EU integration process, so you should not block it. But now that Kosovo's planning to, actually has initiated the process for membership in UNESCO, it's planning to apply at the Council of Europe, the WHO, Interpol, and a number of international organizations. We come down to the bottom line question that you asked at the beginning: what is normality? To us living in Kosovo, it is not normal. It is not part of normalization if on one side we hear continuous statements that you want the Serbs in Kosovo to have a better life, and on the other side you block initiatives that would have a direct impact in improving their lives. Becoming a member of UNESCO, which among others covers issues such as education, preservation and protection of cultural heritage, but as well as science, would have a direct impact in improving the lives of all the citizens of Kosovo. In addition, it would require of Kosovo to implement the best international standards in these areas. So, if someone wants Kosovo to implement best international standards, which would mean protection of cultural heritage, good standards in education, good standards in science, obviously that would mean better standards in all of these areas for all the citizens, including the Serbs. So how can blocking this, how can blocking of these, implementation of these standards benefit anyone living in Kosovo, or in particular benefit the Serbs in Kosovo? If we go back, as you said, and talk about how many religious heritage sites have been destroyed, obviously I can talk about more than 500 mosques and other religious heritage sites that have been destroyed by the Serbian paramilitary and military forces during the war in Kosovo. But Serbia today is a member of UNESCO, and hopefully that helps them understand what best international practices and standards in this area are. And this is what Kosovo today believes, and actually that's one thing that I believe even Mr. Kurti would agree with. So everyone in Kosovo agrees that Kosovo should become a member of UNESCO and other international organizations because it would have the direct impact in the lives of the citizens. What the UNGA resolution asked for, what Catherine Ashton asked for, what we are talking about, improving the lives of the citizens. How can Kosovo becoming a member of WHO, the World Health Organization, not improve the lives or the health of the citizens? Of course it does. We would finally be required to implement and respect some standards when a mother goes to deliver their babies at Kosovo hospitals. We would finally have to implement standards with respect to medication that people get. It does not matter whether that hospital is in the north or in the south. We would all be required to respect those standards once we are at the WHO. So it does. There's simply no question that it would help improve the lives of Kosovo Serbs, Albanians, and everyone else living there. How can becoming a member of Interpol not help rule of law? That we heard earlier as one of the main issues. How can it not help cooperation between Kosovo and Serbia in the area of rule of law? Now, because we're not a member of Interpol, if Serbian police would inform their counterparts in Kosovo about a criminal that was passed in Kosovo, it would take ULEX, who's currently doing the job, hours and hours to get into the system. The criminal will, of course, be gone by then. If we were a member of Interpol, we would do the job. And it would be not just the success of Kosovo, it would be the joint success of the region, as we've seen some examples. I believe that if Serbia would understand that it is precisely these kind of initiatives, UNESCO, WHO, and other international organizations that would finally have a direct impact in improving the lives of Kosovo Serbs, this is when we can start talking about normalization. But of course, as you have heard quite a lot, and this has nothing to do with, since you talked about Mrs. Tahiri and what she was saying behind closed doors, it has nothing to do with trying to be patriotic. It has to do with a reality in the ground, and this is that the normalization can only be achieved once we have a recognition of independence by Serbia. When will that happen? Of course, it's a big question, but we hope that it will happen at some point in time, and it will happen as a result, as the final result of the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia. Now, I think it's also a question of whether we want peace. The people of Kosovo believe that the only way to peace and stability is by having good neighborly relations with Serbia, and that can only be achieved if we recognize each other's borders. Hopefully, the start of negotiations through Chapter 35, and I heard the statement from the German ambassador this morning, but hopefully that will help Serbia gradually come to that point, and hopefully the aim of the initial resolutions, which was cooperation, normal cooperation between two countries, either in economics, either in human rights, either in rule of law, can become a reality without listening to the kind of the stories that, or the kind of the statements that we don't necessarily like from politicians. And hopefully when we go back to North Mitrovica or the other cities in Kosovo, we can actually hear the citizens saying that finally their lives has been improved. Now, just a final example, talking about the Berlin process, which was initiated by Chancellor Merkel. When you ask the Kosovo citizens if they mind that their prime minister is meeting with the prime minister of Serbia in Berlin, they say no. Guess why? Because over there, they're talking about railways, they're talking about roads, they're talking about actual economic cooperation and progress. So how come they mind Brussels, but they don't mind Berlin? It's all about the net result and how tangible you make it to the citizens. I hope that Brussels will keep this in mind, and the European Union, as the facilitator of this process, will keep that in mind when continuing with the next rounds of dialogue, whenever they are. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So I've been informed we have 10 more minutes, and I just want to invite our panelists to make a concluding statement. What interests me, I was at the Belgrade Security Forum 3 weeks ago, and one of the panelists on the discussion about, probably many of you were also there, but one of the panelists said, you know, it's really impossible to get either of the governments to stand up and say, we're doing this because we want to, we believe we should, and this is an important process for us. On both sides, people are saying, politicians are saying, okay, Berlin is pushing us into this, Brussels is pushing us into this. You know, Mr. Stefanovic, you said that what was said recently in the media that was so shocking to President Nikolic is actually the policy of the government. But when it's not presented that way, how can people react? The same thing, I think, in Kosovo is very true now. You have opposition sort of dominating what isn't really a discussion about the current situation and the future association of Serbian majority municipalities.